What up, fam? This is Greg, and this is only for those who have ears to hear. This video is going to be rated T for traumatic and triggering.
Yeah, I quote the word of God because it's medicine when you hear it. I pray for ears to hear it, his messages in these lyrics.
I want to talk about black men suffering in silence. I want to go back to a story from before I was saved, 2011, 2012. Story I'm ashamed of, but I got to tell it. At this stage in my life, I don't know the Lord. I'm wilding out. I'm going to the club. I'm getting drunk every weekend. I'm buying jewelry. I just decided that I just wanted to do what I wanted to do, right? I just decided that I was just going to do me. So I go to the club. I meet this young lady. I get her number or whatever. We link up. And when we link up, we do what single, unsaved people do when they link up. So I go over her house. We go through the song and dance of Netflix and all that dumb stuff. And then finally we get to what we came there to do. So while we're in the act, all of a sudden out of nowhere, all I see is a little boy walk down the stairs. He had to be like 3 to 5 years old, right? He just walks down the stairs and he's just standing there looking. And so I don't know what to do. At this point, I'm frozen. At this point, I've lost all type of appetite and mood that I had. And I kind of tell her like, hey, your son is there. She basically tells him to go upstairs. I think she probably even yelled at him. This was a while ago. She's like, go upstairs or something. And then she just tells me to keep going. And so in my mind, I'm like, dang. I'm like, this is a trash youngin' right here. Like, this young lady is trash. But then at the same time, I was trash. You know what I'm saying? Because I was dealing with her. At this stage, I'm cheating on my girlfriend. It's just all sorts of wild stuff I'm doing. And everybody is trash. That's why we all need salvation. We all need redemption. But what happened is, you know what I'm saying, I have to decide in my mind, like, do I want to keep going with this? You know what I mean? So because I was trash, I kept going with it. I was just like, man, that's messed up, little dude. Like, it's a cold world. Welcome to the real world, right? But the thing about it is, even all of those years back, this had to be, like I said, 2011, 2012. We talking what, 13 years ago, something like that. I still think about that little boy, because that little boy today, you fast forward, let's call him 4 or 5 years old. You add 13 years to that, whatever. He's probably 16, 17, 18 years old. And he has to carry that, because in my mind, it's like, if the mom just let that happen, like it just was what it was, we don't know what else this young boy has experienced in that household. Growing up in this single mother household, and I know a lot of single moms do the best that they can, but the problem is that when it's just one parent in the house, right, they become the dictator, they become the tyrant, and there's no accountability. Even when you have government, we have different branches of government to hold the other branch accountable. And that's what you need from a household, is you need the mother and the father to provide different things and also to hold one another accountable. But a lot of these young men are growing up in these dictatorships, and the mothers sometimes themselves have trauma. They don't have morals. They grew up in toxic situations, and so they don't have anything to impart on these young men, or they feel too stressed out to actually invest the love that's needed for these young men to actually flourish. And what happens is that the young men begin to carry that around. Who could that little boy tell that to? He can't talk to his mom about that. He would be too embarrassed to talk to anybody else about that. He doesn't want to talk to his so-called friends about that. You know how much they feel like they might get clowned, you know, just for expressing whatever type of emotion he might have felt in that moment. So he carries it around. And maybe he gets into a life of crime. Maybe he's one of these teens that's out here robbing, stealing the Kia boys, stealing all these cars and stuff like that, right? And oftentimes we wonder why people do the things that they do, but we don't really know what they go through behind closed doors. We don't know what type of trauma they have actually endured. And there's a lot of young black men that are acting out because they grow up in these horrible situations. That's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, where black men, young black men, have to carry these burdens and they suffer in silence, is when you actually overcome and you become the successful one in the family, right? You beat the odds, you make something of yourself, you put forth the effort, the initiative, and maybe you had some help along the way, but the point is that you're trying to establish yourself, but you got people that are always pulling on you because you're the meal ticket. You got the NBA contract, the NFL contract, you got the good government job, you know, you got a little paper in your pocket, you started doing engineering, you're a mechanic now, and all of a sudden people in your family, they got a handout, friends got a handout, you got buddies that's locked up that want you to send them some money for a stupid decision that they made. And then even sometimes your own mother depends on you to be the man in her life. She converts these men into a son husband. And so as a son husband, right, you become that male utility. You become her fixer. You become her financial supporter. And she begins to ask you for money. But then as a young man, you're conflicted because this is what you worked for. And as a child, you should be afforded the right to be a child, right? You should be afforded the right to not having your parents have you make up for whatever they missed. But then you have this obligation because that's my mama. This obligation because maybe you think she was a victim herself. She didn't have the right circumstances growing up. And so you can't talk to anybody about that because you don't want to throw your mom under the bus. But then at the same time, you have to carry it around. And it forces you to be a son husband. Some guys, they are fine with being son husbands because that's all that they know, right? They grew up under that matriarchy and they just don't know any better. They don't know anything, right? But then you have others that they don't even want to be in that position, but they feel like they have this moral obligation to basically be a savior to your parents. We should definitely be benevolent. We should not be stingy. But at the same time, we have to live our own lives. And I talk about how there's so many black men that are walking around carrying these burdens and suffering in silence. But it's not only black men. There's a movie you can check out on Netflix. It's called Hillbilly Elegy. I recommend a lot of men watch it. And I won't give too much of it away, but it's based on a true story. And what it's about is a young man who grew up in a hillbilly household. He's a young white guy, right? And he's the only one in his family that has the potential to make something of himself. He's going to one of these Ivy League schools. It's tough for him because his upbringing does not mesh with this pretentious Ivy League culture, right? So it reminds me a lot about young black boys who grow up in the hood, and it's like the things that you're used to won't mesh with this Ivy League school. It won't mesh with corporate America. So then you're faced with this decision. Do I assimilate? If I assimilate, am I compromising myself, right? Am I even able to relate to these people? And so in the movie, this young man is trying to make his way. He's a broke college student, but he's doing the best that he can. The problem is that way back in the South, I think he's from Kentucky, I could be wrong, but his mom is now strung out on drugs. She in the movie was a single mother, and she's making these horrible mistakes, just strung out on drugs, and he has to keep going back trying to fix this situation, a broken situation that he didn't break, and it's causing him to miss opportunities. He has the potential to miss interviews, right? He's going through issues with the girlfriend that he's dating because he has to keep reaching back and addressing this situation because he has this unwritten burden that's been placed on his life. So it's not only black men, it could be men of any color that go through these type of things. But I just wanted to make this video for any young man that's suffering in silence. Just know that you're not alone. Get whatever help you need. Pray, seek the Lord, seek counsel that you can trust. You can hit me up, you know what I mean? But it's just one of them things, man, where it's just like so many are walking around and we wonder why people do the things that they do. And it could just be that. I feel sorry for that little boy that was in that house that I went to. I felt like crap. You know, anytime I think back to it, I just think about how horrible I was. Some people blame it on the system. Some people blame it on the culture. I personally blame it on the culture. and the abandonment of God, but for whatever reason, men are carrying this unnecessary burden. That's all I got in this video. Hopefully you have ears to hear. Whoever does have ears to hear, let them hear. You all take care. Be blessed.
Keep fighting, keep praising, keep worshiping. The last shall be first, so it's not about who the first to win. Long as you stay in the race, when in this world of sin, there's light at the end of the tunnel, so you can hope again.